Well, this is to help you understand what it is you're doing in Assignment 1-4. And I'm just going to go through a few simple things with you real quick and then take you to the gist of it. Most of you realize that you're reading through this to get your assignment, what it is you're supposed to be doing exactly. It tells you to go to something like the Webliography, which we've looked at before, is right here. Go in there and find a reliable source and a good media now, or a good image. Now, the reason we want you to go to this is because we would like for you to get some kind of an image that you're going to be able to research. So these are all researchable, okay? Then, of course, as you do this, it's always a good idea to pay particular attention to where you're going over here in terms of what your rubric says. And it wants you, first of all, reliable source, all right, and then identifying information and a link to the web page, something I can click on. Don't just give me an HTTP address. I want something I can click on. And that's not for me as much as for everybody who's looking at your work and wants to know how you're seeing it. And then, of course, describe the subject media in terms of elements of art and principles of design. Those are very, very important. We're going to look at those real briefly here in a minute. And then, of course, the rest of it is pretty much what we've been doing. Respond to your peers and certainly proofread. And I think I've told you before that a good way to do that is to set up so that you can proofread, write it in something like a Word document, and then it'll do a spell check for you automatically and a grammar too. So that's a good thing to do. All right, well, this was the one that I chose, and it is a piece by Leonardo da Vinci, so I would tell you that. It's hanging, I believe, in a little monastery. It's not hanging, it's actually a fresco. It's on the wall. So Santa Maria de Grazie, and I would put that down, and I would also put that it's I believe, tempera on gesso, and I would also put that it is by Leonardo da Vinci. Then you're asked to use elements and principles. Well, right off, I will talk about shapes. Shapes here, my friends, are not organic. They're natural, not realistic, but natural. Natural being how they really look. And I might talk about lines. Look at the implied lines. Look at how when the apostles look at each other, that makes a line to wherever that's going. I would talk about that. The colors, I would address not just what the hue is, like blue or red, but I would talk to you about the saturation. Brightly, highly saturated blue here on the cloak of Christ, and a highly saturated medium value here, red. Some dark valued, very unsaturated, neutral things going on here. I would talk about other actual lines. Look at the way these actual lines are set up. Now, you could continue that whole list, and you should. I should have a list right here, and you should check it while you're writing it. And then I would talk quickly about the principles, about unity, about balance, about focal point. Clearly, Christ is the focal point. Placement, look at how everything points to him, even the apostles, giving that applied line. Contrast, his silhouette is contrasted here on the window here in the background. So placement, contrast, isolation. Look at how isolated he is. So Da Vinci takes no chance. He gives you focal point from the get-go. And then, of course, I would talk about balance, balance being somewhat asymmetrical. If you draw a line right down here, you see there's a tiny bit of a balance on this way. So I would say asymmetrical simply because line down the middle, it is not equal on both sides. It is balanced, but it is not equal. And then unity. And unity, I'm afraid I would have to say, would be created by probably continuation. You can see how all these things point to Christ, and look at the strong vertical that takes you back here. So certainly continuation, repetition maybe of the squares, space back to elements again. Forgive me as I jump around. Look at this linear perspective here, how you see a vanishing point right in the very back of Christ's head that forces you as all of these lines converge on that point. Well, I'm talking quickly because I want to get all this on. Now then, the second thing you're asked to do is talk about what's going on in this piece. Now, we're all familiar with the Last Supper. We're all pretty familiar with what went on. It's where Christ says, and this is that instant where he says, one of you all, when he's addressing his disciples, will betray me. And you can make a case for that. And I would talk about how they're all looking at Christ, how they're talking to him, The one disciple leans slightly away here. All of this is going on, all right? And I would describe that, and I would maybe venture a guess as to what Leonardo was doing here, what his point was. And his point clearly is to give us a clear illustration of that moment in Christ's life when he is forced to embrace his fate. Um, However you want to say that, that's what I would do on this piece. So you want to give a little bit of your personal impression about what the artist is doing. You want to clearly go through elements and principles, and you also want to identify the image. 3 biggies. Okay, that's it for now.